What's up, guys? It's been about, I think, 8 to 10 days since my last garden tour update, and I came outside to the garden to just check on things because yesterday was raining a lot and I didn't really get out here. And so I came out here and there's already things to harvest, and so instead of harvesting off camera, I thought I would take you guys around with me and harvest the things and just talk about all of the growth that has been going on in the garden. So with talking about so much growth that's happening in the garden, of course the first place that I want to take you to is my favorite place in the garden right now. It looks so beautiful, and it is my pole bean trellis. I have 3 arch trellises here, and there's pole beans and then there's bush beans at either side of the beds, and we already have some beans that seem to be ready to harvest. Let me bring you in closer and show you. So these are all of the beans, and I have a small section in here. You can see right here that there's already beans that are ready to be harvested in here. We had a really big rain. The last time I checked on these, they were probably all this big, and then now, as you can see, these are literally ready to harvest. This is the season where I always miss the first beans because they're hiding at the bottom and I don't see them until they get too unusable, but I didn't miss these. I cannot tell you the variety of these pole beans or bush beans, with the exception of the Scarlet Runner bean, and I think this is like the purple royal burgundy pole bean. But every other bean in here, especially on this side, I can't tell you. All of my bean seeds had spilled in a bag. I just know that they were white bean seeds, and so I just planted them out and hope that, I was just like mystery plant. The bush beans behind this bed, I do know what they were. They were the painted pony bush bean, and they were my favorite bush bean. They were a very slender bush bean, and you can use them as a fresh eating bean, or you can save them and use them for dried bush bean. I haven't saved them for dry bush beans, but I love doing them fresh. They were slimmer than this one, very, very slim. They're like a French bush bean, and they were very prolific. And so that whole, this whole bed right behind me is painted pony bush beans. It's amazing how fast these pole beans have gotten to the top of this trellis. And there are a couple beans that should be ready. Oh, I think I see one. Oh yeah, right down there. Now that's a pretty bush bean. So I did plant either a sunflower or a okra at the edges of these beds, and so this one's a sunflower, but I believe at the beginning of the bed I have a okra instead. You have to like really get in here and move the beans around, because that's the only bad thing about planting green bush beans, is it's hard to harvest because all you see is green bush and you don't know if any are down there. Like, yeah. So this is the okra plant I was telling you about. So there's okra on this side, and then there's sunflower on that side. This bed I didn't plant Bells of Ireland, which is a really pretty flower. It's probably my favorite flower. It does have spikes on the bells, but it's so pretty. I didn't plant that there, but I did try to plant Bells of Ireland, and I didn't get any luck sprouting my Bells of Ireland seeds this year, but I did plant them 2 years ago and they were in this bed, and so they've been coming back ever since then. And so I just leave them now, and so that ensures that I'll at least have Bells of Ireland. Even if I fail at having Bells of Ireland from seed, I know that they'll continue to keep popping up in my garden if I just leave these here. And so that's what I've been doing. So none of the bush beans on this side are ready to be harvested because I did plant, or my daughter planted these about 2 weeks after we planted that bed so that I could have a succession of bush beans. All of these bush beans were from this bed over here, and now that I started harvesting even a handful of bush beans, I'll have to come out here like every day, every other day, to with gloves on and check and look in between, because while I was moving leaves, all I heard was a bunch of bees swarming around, and so there's a bunch of bees in there. I even saw some caterpillars and stuff like that, and so I want to be safe and also be able to get the harvest. Now that I'm standing here, it looks like I see another bean at the corner of my eye. I just was looking over here, and then I saw all of these beans down here. So this looks like a painted pony. I'm gonna leave these to get a little longer, but that bean right there is a painted pony bush bean. You see how slim it is compared to the other ones in my hand? I love how full my in-ground bed has turned out to be. In the front, we do have elephant garlic that all sprouted from last year. I left my elephant garlic in the ground, and then they all sprouted towards the end, but I was able to transplant them, and then that's how we have a full, this is 40 feet bed of elephant garlic, and they're going about 2 to 3 rows. So this one has 3 rows, and it's going all the way down in the length of the 40-foot bed. But then behind it, I do have mostly dwarf tomatoes. This is my first year growing the dwarf tomatoes. So all of these are dwarf tomatoes, but then some didn't make it, and so I put a couple cherry tomato plants. So this is a cherry tomato plant. This is a velvet tomato, which you can see the leaves are different than the leaves right here. So this is the velvet, which looks so pretty, and it's soft, and it does feel like suede or velvet. And then next to the tomato right here. So this one, there's like, I guess 5 regular tomatoes in here, but then the rest are dwarf tomatoes. And this is so interesting, but all of this basil sprouted from seed because I did have basil here. And most of it, with the exception of this Genovese basil, most of it grew and started going to seed right away, even fairly short. They started going to seed. So I want to get out here and harvest them, especially because some of them are starting to shade some of the dwarf tomatoes. But this bed looks very full, and I look forward to a great elephant garlic harvest. I didn't actually bring out a harvest basket with me, even though I knew things could have possibly been ready to harvest, but I wasn't exactly sure. So I'll have to hold these with me. My next bed are flowers. All of these flowers I bought from a market in Colombia. And I put an amaranth at the end of this bed on both ends, this end, and you can see it already has holes. And I put it at the end of that bed because this trellis is my cucumber trellis, and amaranth is actually a trap crop for cucumber beetles and squash bugs. So you can already see that it already has so much holes, and I think earlier I saw some bugs on this one, and I'll be able to show you. You see how holey it is? Yeah. And then the bugs are eating the amaranth, but if you look at my cucumbers, and there's a cucumber down there ready to harvest, they're leaving my cucumbers alone. So if you have trouble with squash bugs or cucumber beetles, definitely plant amaranth in with them, and they'll eat the amaranth and leave your cucumbers alone. Again, at the end of these beds, I planted okra at the ends of each, and let's go harvest our first cucumber, which is, it says it's a tasty green. So I think this is the first year I'm growing this cucumber, and I think I got the seeds from Haas Tools. actually no, I just remembered when I felt it, and I did grow this last year as well. So this looks just like an English cucumber, and you can see already some more starting to come on here. I planted 12 cucumbers on these 2 cattle panels, and all 12 varieties are different varieties, and I did start them from seed and transplant them, but then one of my transplants died, and so I replanted one, and so that one's going to be behind the rest of them. But for the most part, all of these were transplanted out, and I started them 2 weeks before I transplanted them. I do have cucumbers growing on this side. Well, it's my assumption that they're cucumbers, because I planted last year salt and pepper cucumbers on this trellis, and then this started popping out. I didn't plant this. This is a volunteer plant, and it doesn't have any fruit on it, so I can't guarantee it's a cucumber, but it's on the trellis where I had salt and pepper cucumbers. It looks like a cucumber, and so I'm assuming this is a salt and pepper cucumber, which I do have, but I left it there just for the fun of it, to see what it was. And then I also had, you can see where I pulled all of these out, I had more cucumbers starting to germinate, and I just pulled them all out from this spot right here, and I left one because, again, I'm just gonna see what it is. It might both be salt and pepper cucumbers, or they might be a mix of something, because I definitely had more than one cucumber planted by each other, so they could have cross-pollinate. But I'm gonna leave them here and see what they turn out to be. Right across from here, I have my grapevines, and you can already see, which I'm so excited about, we have baby grapes all along this fence. Grapes are probably most of my kids' favorite fruit. I would probably say grapes is, if they had to choose, it would probably be grapes. But I know that I absolutely love grapes, and so to see that we have so many grapes on, I think I have 3 grape plants here. I have 3 grape plants here, to see so many grapes forming. This will be my first year getting grapes, if we get any grapes, and I'm so here for it. I'm so happy for it. In my old house, we did have grapevines, and one year I did get a few grapes, but then I think the frost came early and killed them or something like that, and so they were sour. They didn't get a chance to turn sweet, but hopefully these get a chance to turn sweet. I'm so excited. Moving on the other side of the cucumbers, this is what I'm now calling my herb bed, because I transplanted all my herbs here. So we have a sage I transplanted from the green stalk. We have a thyme I transplanted. We have our chamomile. I have 2 echinaceas. This is pennyroyal that has basically taken over this whole bed, and I'm here for it because it keeps the weeds down. And then towards the front, we have a stevia, and I think this was called lemon thyme. I just got it because it was variegated, and it looks gorgeous. I also had transplanted an oregano, which right at this point is blending in with the summer savory, but this right here is oregano that I transplanted from a Forever Garden bed, and you can kind of tell the difference if you look really close. But then moving right next to it is where I have all of my squashes slash zucchinis, summer squashes, summer zucchinis. All of these I started from seed, and I can see the zucchini I hand pollinated is already, by tomorrow I'll be able to harvest that. But then I also see I have some new ones just forming, just a regular zucchini over there, but all of the flowers are bursting and it looks gorgeous, so I'm here for it. And then moving right on down, I did plant a lot of sunflowers and zinnia seeds in this bed, and I've already had this comfrey here for about 2 years. And I did, like a couple weeks ago, probably 3 weeks ago, get all of this comfrey and put it in that bed right there to put some organic matter, and you can see it's already ready to be harvested again. Previous years with my comfrey, I've just been freeze drying it or dehydrating it and using it I've made comfrey salves, and right now have a lot inside of Mylar bags. And so this year my plan is, because I absolutely don't need any more this year, my plan is to grow comfrey to make fertilizer. Comfrey is really good. It has a good NPK in it, and you can use it to make comfrey tea for your plants. You can use it as organic matter. You can use it as a mulch. And so this year my plan is to keep it cut down, which I'm not going to do today, but then laying it down in beds. Oh, my garden kitty shadow. Laying it down in beds to fertilize and to keep the plants nice and healthy. And on the side of it, I have been thinking about moving it to the herb bed, but I'm not sure. It's established here, and I've heard that comfrey, once, even if you leave like a little tiny baby root, that it will grow again, which wouldn't be that bad if I tried to transplant it and it came back here. Then I'll just have it in multiple places of the garden, but I don't know, we'll see. But on the opposite side of these trellises, I have squashes, and so we're gonna go over right on next door and I'll show you the squashes I have so far. So on this side I have 2 Tromboncinos, and they haven't started putting out any fruit yet, which is fine, but I can't wait to have fruit growing on here. I've tried, and I said this, to grow cucuzzi here. This will be my 3rd time or 4th time planting seeds here, and they haven't germinated yet, which is really disappointing. I was hoping to use it for like animal feed this year, or just, I really liked shredding it last year and using it in the place of zucchini. I freeze dried all of it, and you can use like one where it takes the place of like 4 zucchinis, and I freeze dried it, and we made so many zucchini muffins over the winter time. And so I was hoping to get some more cucuzzis and then also feeding them to our pigs, but I don't know if that's gonna happen this year because I used all of my seeds, and I've tried to plant it 4 times and still have not gotten any luck growing cucuzzis this year. But other things on this trellis are winter squashes. So I did try to leave all of my seeds. This is a delicata, which I don't remember what that looks like, but I know I have a sweet dumpling here that hasn't germinated, and that's a winter squash. This one actually is a honeydew, no, a cantaloupe. It's a Indian mix of a honeydew, and then we do have some more cantaloupes right there. That's a hearts of gold, and I don't see tasty bits. That's a small personal size cantaloupe. And then we have a yellow doll watermelon, which I grew the yellow doll watermelon last year, I think, or maybe 2 years ago, and it was actually so pretty. It was so pretty on the inside. It was yellow. It tasted just like a regular watermelon. It was tiny, and it just looked so pretty. And so I'm so happy to see that we have that growing again. But this is where I have all of my actual big size watermelons. I think I have probably 12 to 14 watermelons. They're all different varieties here. None of them are the same, so they're all different types of watermelon, and some I planted from seed and some I transplanted, and so that's why you see some are smaller, like this Charleston Gray I planted from seed, and this one right here I planted from seed, so it's smaller. This is the Moon and Stars, and so it does have that yellow speckles on it. But this is where all of my watermelons will be, and I can see that I already see some flowers happening, so that's really exciting. And then right across from that, in what I call my cross bed, is where I planted all of my pumpkins, and they're almost taking over this bed, which is exactly what I wanted. That side is doing its thing. I wanted it to fill out and take over so that you wouldn't see this black landscape fabric. Whatever pumpkin was here didn't germinate, and neither did that pumpkin, but the rest of the pumpkins are already starting to flower and they're looking great. And then going on to my log raised beds, besides all of the weeds, this is where I have all of my winter squashes. So like acorn squash, spaghetti squash, and anything else that's considered a winter squash. I think I even have a banana squash here. And so this is what this is. I want to show you my blueberry bushes because this year is going to be the year of the blueberry. I bought these blueberry bushes from my local farm store. As soon as we moved here, it's the first thing I bought. And last year I got probably like a handful, but my girls just ate them completely. But you can see how this will be their third year. These are blueberries I grew myself, so they're much smaller. I haven't planted them yet, but you can see that these blueberries that I got from my farm store are ready to give me blueberries this year, and I am so happy for it. I'm here for it, and I cannot wait. My kids do not like blueberries from the store, but they love homegrown blueberries. Who am I kidding when I say my kids don't like blueberries from the store? I don't even like blueberries from the store, but I do love homegrown blueberries. I also like sugar snap peas homegrown, but every time I've tried to have them from the store, I don't like them. And so definitely homegrown tastes amazing. This bed right here is the bed that I harvested half of the bed of potatoes, and this bed still looked pretty good, and so I left it. Potatoes die when they're ready to be harvested, and I showed you guys how I had a bunch of grubs eating my plants, and I think that's why they were dying prematurely, because originally I had said that I planted this bed that I harvested first, but really I planted that bed of potatoes first. Probably it was either 5 days before I planted this bed, and this bed died first. And so I'm really excited to see what this bed holds. I think that one is my red potatoes and white potatoes. I can't even remember if I ordered red and white, but I think that's my red and white potatoes, and all of these was my Yukon Golds, which is actually my favorite potato. But I only got 17 pounds from half of this bed, and this bed is 15 feet, so probably a little more than half, probably 60% of this bed I harvested, and only got 17 pounds, which isn't bad, but isn't great either. And so I left this other side of the bed hoping for the potatoes to get a little bigger, and I did end up ordering nematodes and milky spores to put in these beds, because this bed right next to it, I just dug around. This is the bed that I have strawberries and raspberries in. You can see, let me bring you in closer. I've been hand picking individual raspberries as they've been ready to eat, and they've tasted amazing. See, there's one right there that I can eat. But these are raspberry canes. There's 9 of them in here that I just got from Tractor Supply. This bed has a bunch of weeds around it that we have to get to, but they're raspberries, and then there's strawberries in the middle. And I think this is either going to be a cucuzzi or a Tromboncino, and that's why I've been leaving it, because this is where I had either a cucuzzi or Tromboncino last year on this trellis. That's why that T-post is stuck in the ground. And then all of a sudden I see that we have squashes in this bed, and so we had much more, and so I'm only trying to leave like 1 or 2. So when I've been seeing them pop up, I've been pulling them out, because I'm not trying to kill my strawberries or raspberries. But then again, if this is a cucuzzi, I want to give it a chance, especially because I'm not getting any cucuzzis from seed over there. So like I already said, this bed is red potatoes and white, I believe, and this is a 15-foot bed, 3 foot wide, and they are dying, so that tells me that they're getting pretty close, ready to harvest. We did add drip probably 2 weeks ago to all of our beds, but I have it turned off because this past week has been raining non-stop. So going forward, these beds are mostly tomatoes. We have some peppers in, but this is my determinate bed of tomatoes, and you can already see we have tomatoes forming, which is nice. I haven't really pruned these tomatoes since they are determinate, and that's a Rutgers. I've never grown that tomato before, but it looks really, really pretty. And you can see all of the flowers. Then moving right along, we have our paste. No, these aren't paste. These are beefsteaks. And so this is a Cherokee. My friend gave me two Cherokee purples, and so that she saved seeds from. So I'm really excited to have this. I've never grown Cherokee purple before, but I got it from her, and they're really big and look pretty already. And so we have 15 beefsteak tomatoes, and then 15 on this side, and down the middle I only planted about 4 marigolds, so it has a foot of space because this bed is 3 foot wide. And you can see here, I'm here for all of the tomatoes. This is an orange tomato, and yes, it does have some disease. This is an orange tomato. But I think the most tomatoes I've seen for a beefsteak would have to be this one. Wisconsin 55, and so it does produce faster in cooler weather. But look how pretty that is. I've never grown that tomato either, and so I'm happy to see what it looks like. And most of my tomatoes and things, well, plants in general, I'm going to be trying to save seeds from my first fruit, and because a lot of the seeds that I planted this year were my last seeds in the packet, and so I did save the packet so that I could remember to save seeds. And then on the name tags I wrote a little star so that I knew that, hey, this you either used all up or you only had a couple left, and so you need to save seeds for it. And then right next door, this is a 3 by 15 bed, and the whole bed is filled with sweet peppers, with the exception of some marigolds and nasturtiums. I think I have 2 nasturtiums and 2 marigolds. Yeah, there's a nasturtium there, and then there's actually 3 marigolds right here, right there. But earlier I was walking through and I saw my first pepper. And it is right there. Oh, I didn't even see that there's a pepper forming there. So this is a Tiki's New Ace. And I know that these were seeds that got wet. My garden kitty's in here with me. These are seeds that got wet, and I wasn't sure if they were even going to germinate. And so the fact that I have 3, I'm definitely going to be saving seeds from these. And this is my first year growing this one as well. And so I'm really happy to have it in my garden and to have peppers in general. Last year, if you were here with me, I planted all of my sweet peppers inside of the hoop house. And then when I went on my missionary trip, there was I think it was a hurricane that came through that turned into a tropical storm or something like that. It knocked over my green stalks. My family got sick the 10 days I was gone, and so they didn't water my hoop house. And all of my tomatoes inside the hoop house, as well as my peppers, ended up not making it. And so I barely got any peppers because I didn't really plant any peppers outdoors. I had like a couple, but not very many. And so, yeah, I'm so happy to have peppers this year because I want all of the peppers. My family really love peppers. They love to eat sweet peppers just raw. That's probably their favorite vegetable to eat besides carrots. And so, yeah, all of my peppers here. I do want to touch on this tomato right here. This is called a mushroom basket, and last year was my first year growing it, and you can see how gnarly it looks. Let me show you from the other side. But this tomato was so prolific for me last year, and so I grew it again, even though it looks really weird, but it just produced so much. It outproduced so many of my tomatoes. It lasted the longest, and so that's why I grew it again, and I hope it doesn't disappoint. This bed right here was the last of the tomatoes that I planted because this bed had ants in it, and so we had to get the ants out before we planted it. These are smaller than beefsteak. They're like the Paul Robeson, which is right there. They're about like 12 to 16 ounce tomatoes. So that's why they're much smaller than, say, like the tomatoes right next door to it. But they have caught up and already starting to put on flowers. So I think they're going to have no trouble competing, and I already see some small tomatoes right which actually this is not even, this is a cherry tomato because it's called a farmer's delight or gardener's delight, which is small cherry tomatoes. And I'm dropping green beans. But for the most part, this is the bed that I have all of my cherry tomatoes in. And again, this cherry tomato is outdoing all the cherry tomatoes with its long trellises. This is called a gold nugget, and you can see it has that star, and so that means that I have no more seeds of this, and so I want to save as many seeds as I can from this plant. But look how pretty. As I am walking through the garden and doing these garden tours, I want to keep track of the tomatoes that are producing first, because for the most part, if they're all in the same bed, I planted them at the same time. And so like that gold nugget, which is a cherry tomato, I planted all my cherry tomatoes at the same time. But the fact that it has so many loaded with cherry tomatoes is just amazing. And so I'm gonna keep note for that. And this year I'm also weighing all of my produce, so when I get inside I'm going to start a tab on my green beans and my cucumbers and weigh this. This is actually not a cherry tomato, it's actually a paste tomato that my friend gave me, and I didn't have space for it because I planted all my paste tomatoes in the hoop house. But look at it, it's already producing so much paste tomatoes. This is my first year growing paste tomatoes for sauces. Usually whatever tomatoes I grew, I would just save them and then use them to make sauces in January. But obviously things that are not paste tomatoes are more liquidy, and so you have to wait for it to get its liquid out to thicken up and stuff like that, which I don't really mind. Sometimes I end up adding tomato paste to make it thicker, but this year I specifically grew paste tomatoes, mostly all in my hoop house with the exception of like one or two that's out here for growing or for canning tomato sauce. I use a lot of pasta sauce. We probably eat spaghetti once a week. It's easy, my kids know how to make it, and so right now in January I think I did 16 of like the 4-cup, what is that called, quart jars, and that's gonna definitely not be enough to last me until January again. But I hope that when I do start collecting up paste tomatoes, if I have to can before January to have enough pasta sauce, that I will. Moving right along, this is a Chadwick tomato, again another tomato that I've never planted before, but you can see it does have already tomatoes forming. And this is something new that a new tomato seed that I got last year or this year. It's called a Tumbler, and I think I got it from Haas Tools, but I did not realize when it said cherry tomato that it was actually for hanging baskets. So this tomato plant is actually supposed to be in hanging baskets, because you can see how it's growing out instead of up. And so I've just been leaving it, but you can see all the tomatoes, and I planted it obviously in the wrong spot, but it's gonna grow out instead of up. But look, it already has tomatoes. The last two beds that I'll talk about are my spicy pepper beds. So these beds are 3x6, and majority are spicy peppers, but again I do have some nasturtiums and some marigolds in both these beds. And oh yeah, I forgot, I even have an eggplant planted that I got from my farm store, because I tried to grow eggplant and they didn't work, and so I got some eggplant and planted them there. I don't see any peppers forming on them, but I'll be happy. I do have some new spicy pepper plants that I'm trying from seeds one of you guys sent me, but the plants are big, they're lush, they're pretty, and of course there's weeds around it that we'll get to, but very pretty bed. I don't have much things happening in my Forever Garden beds. I do have like that one bed of onions that I already pulled, and the bed of onions next to it that I'm trying to hope and pray that they get bigger, the bulbs. But if they don't, I'll just use those as, I'll put them, just chop them and probably use them for either onion powder, or if they're big enough to dice them and use them as freezer onions. But I did want to walk you in my hoop house as a last thing on this garden tour and show you what's going on in there. I guess we'll touch on this green stalk because this is a leaf green stalk, and usually they tell you not to plant big things like tomatoes and peppers in there, but you can see I have tomatoes, peppers in there, nasturtiums that are in full bloom. I even planted bush beans in there, and it's doing awesome. Really, really pretty. Didn't disappoint. But the one next to it, I have just strawberry, bare root strawberries in there. But inside my hoop house are all, like I said, mostly all paste tomatoes. And we can see some starting to form there. I actually just planted these beds in the front out. So I think right here I put zucchinis. I think in this bed I did bush beans. And then in the bed down there I did squashes, so like summer squashes, and so obviously they haven't germinated yet. But look at this tomato plant. This tomato plant is already touching the top of this hoop house, and it's not even, if it was standing up straight, it would have been already climbing over. I actually put it towards the front, and it has cherry tomatoes, or not cherry, these are paste tomatoes, and I'm pretty sure this is a purple variety. Yeah, it's Ukrainian purple. So I can't wait to see what those look like. I didn't even see these, but that's a Jasper tomato. It's not a, obviously not a paste, but it said it was good grown in hoop houses, and so that's why I put it in here. I just like to shake the plant because tomatoes are self-pollinating, which means the pollen has to fall from by itself in order to form tomatoes. And then we have some tomatoes going. So that is pretty much everything we have going on right now inside of the garden, and I am here for it. This is the beginning of May, and it's still early, and I just harvested my first cucumber and green bean, and so I'm so beyond excited. But thank you guys for hanging out with me while we did this little walkthrough through the garden, did a little harvesting, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye guys.